Miles to go with the editorial.
Right, well, good morning, welcome to our May 9th, 2023 goal setting work session. So we'll start off with introductions and Pat Malone, Commissioner and Chair.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner.
Suzanne Hoffman, Aaron County Administrator.
Zan Rural Commissioner.
Laura Kwiatkowski, Meeting Recorder.
Corey Grogan, Public Information.
Nick Earth, Justice System Improvement Program Manager. All right, and those joining us online, would you,
Vance Crony, County Council.
morning, Vance,
Hey, good morning, Darren Nichols, Community Development Director.
morning.
Morning, everybody. Rick Kreger, Chief Financial Officer.
Right.
And Health Department just listening in.
I see, or kind of hear April Hall.
Laura, can we turn that up a little bit? I think John did it up.
And I'm Amanda Makepeace. I'm the agenda whisperer and I'm watching from the other room. What?
Amanda, could you give us a sound check, please?
Okay, here I am saying something. Can you hear me? All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
All right, are there any announcements this morning? All right, well, are there any changes to our agenda? Moving right along. 3.1 strategic communications update.
All right, so we have a couple guests for this update this week, and so I'd like to thank Nick for being here to provide an update. After Nick will be Kaylee, but I've been coordinating really closely with Nick and Brenda on the JSIP communications, and as we get the home stretch, I just wanted to invite Nick to give an update on that.
Right. Okay, as of yesterday at 4:24 p.m., there were 9,886 ballots cast of a potential 60,296, which represents about 16.4% of the potential voting population. To put that in context, for the November 15th special election, which was our last bond measure related to the justice system, ultimately there were 22,135 ballots cast, which was about 45.5% return. So on a percentage basis, we're about a third of the way there. Actually, numbers are higher this go around because of the potential number of ballots has increased. So percentage wise, we're not higher, but nominally we are. That's current situation. Which special election were you comparing this to? The November 2015 special election, which was the last justice system bond measure.
So the 2015 January.
Yep, correct. So then I just wanted to just hit the high notes. Obviously, we're within a week of election day now. The communications team is finalizing statements for the electeds and for Corey to provide to the media. That covers all of the outcomes, including passing, not passing, and going into overtime. So we'll be prepared for any of those possibilities. The overtime one, of course, is one you're all familiar with, and with statute changing to postmark of 7 days. It's possible we could have a close election and we would not know until 24th. What the outcome of the measure is, so we'll be prepared for Let's see, on election day, this is a Benton County election. The topic happens to be the Justice System Improvement Program, but as it is a Benton County election, our PIO will essentially have the control, have the responsibility for issuing communications on that day. That's why we have the meeting as a communications team.
No, I think just it's, I'm glad that we'll have talking points for potential outcomes, and we'll really be able to focus on the election process, which, you know, in theory also gives us an opportunity to educate folks about how that works. So it's good that we're doing some of that work in advance, and we can really stick to the talking points, which is really informing the public about the election.
Just a couple of housekeeping items. I did want to make you aware that we did extend Brendan Downham's contract actually all the way till the end of the year. We didn't extend the dollar amount of her contract, but she does have probably 3 months additional run rate at her current run rate. So wanted you to know that she will be around and available to assist with post-election communications, and I'm looking forward to having her for that additional time. On that note, I did ask Brenda to prepare a communications report summary, a postmortem, so to speak. We did this with Cogito 2 years ago now, I think, or a year and a half ago now. So it'll be similar to the report that you received from them, but a little bit more comprehensive, since we've obviously got the milestone of the election included as well. So if you have any specific requests, actually I can provide you with an outline of that report. I'll ask Brenda to do that. And then if there's anything in particular that you would like to see added, they'll have opportunity to do that. And that's my update. Any questions or requests? Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate you doing that. So next I'm going to kick it over to Kaylee. I know the issue with fentanyl and fentanyl awareness has been big lately, really important for health and law enforcement. So another thing that I'm proud of is this is another opportunity to show that we're coordinating with the Benton County Sheriff's Office, Benton County Health Department, the Dallas Police Department, and the Board of Commissioners, really with our health department in the lead. So I'll kick it over to Kaylee to talk a little bit about that.
Hi, commissioners. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, so this is Kaylee Olson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the communications coordinator for the health department. And Corey asked me here today to just talk a little bit about our partnership on the fentanyl awareness campaign, which launches today in perfect timing with Fentanyl Awareness Day, May 9th. So we're really excited to partner with law enforcement on this. We are working together with the Sheriff's Office, with Corvallis Police Department, with the Health Department, and with the BOC office. And so we're going to have a lot of great info for the community. We wanted to launch this campaign to help raise community awareness and empower the community with information and tools they can use to stay safe and know the dangers of this powerful synthetic opioid. So the county has been seeing increased calls to 911, increased emergency room visits, even fatalities as a result of this dangerous opioid and its entrance into our community. So we want to equip the community with, information with the facts. We're going to share a lot of info about myth busting. We're also going to provide, opportunities and connections to resources for treatment, as well as other tools and information on how to lower risk of overdose, a lot of harm reduction information. So if you are using, here's how to do it safely, and here are resources to get treatment, so that we, are caring for the individual and providing them with rehabilitative opportunities rather than punitive punishments. But of course, we are going to have our law enforcement side there too, to share all of the info that they have on crime rates and overdose fatalities in the area. So that's going to be really helpful as well to give people a lot of the correct information about this topic. So we're looking forward to releasing the press release today. We've updated our Benton County Health Department website. We're going to have a web banner on the main web page, which directs folks to the information. The sheriff's office, excuse me, is also releasing a press release later this month. There's going to be an event, an info session for the community to attend with Benton County Sheriff's Office, Corvallis Police Department, and Benton County Health Department on May 23rd at the Calapooya building right there where you are now, commissioners. So more info to come. We're really excited about this partnership. There are going to be reader boards placed throughout the community to let folks know about the event. And we're also planning to get some content out in Spanish for that as well in the coming months to get an event for Spanish speakers. So lots of great stuff coming up. I will pause there and see if you have any questions.
Do you know what time on the 23rd?
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. It's 6:30 p.m. and it'll be in the Holmes and Shipley room there.
Thank you.
Sure.
No questions, but I'm glad you're doing it. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always great to work with a great communications team that we have interdepartmentally at this county. So I'm grateful for all their help.
All right, excellent update. Thanks, Kaylee. All right, well, I'll kick over to the next part, and I see there's 15 minutes on here for proclamations as well. I don't think that's going to take as long, so most of this will probably be regarding strategic communications. But the first thing that I wanted to update you all on is the Benton County Public Podcast. We did episode 2 of that. We're getting ready to release it likely tomorrow. Had a lot of good feedback about the first episode. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at or listen to that, but if you haven't yet, I recommend checking it out. I'm confident that our next episode will be even better. We did that on the Jackson Fraser Boardwalk and did it on the replacement and just talking about why that is such an important place for the community. And then the next one will be next month, talking about homeless resources in the Daytime Drop-In Center with Allison and then Hopgood and another guest. So that's something that I'm really interested in continuing to keep up with, because again, we got positive feedback, and I know a lot of our community members are involved in the process and want to take a deeper dive on some of these topics. So I think Maura, are we gonna just roll without the presentation?
I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay, go ahead. I'm not sure if the clicker works though.
Is it turned on?
Oh, you want me to run it from the computer?
No, you just turn the clicker on and aim it at my computer.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think
Is it on?
it's on. It's not working.
Check it out.
Oh, I know why. I know why. Aim it at this one, Corey.
I can see the first slide, but I don't see any advancing.
Okay, I can advance them then anyway. I don't know why it's not working.
Okay, go ahead and advance that. Thank you. So we covered the full first bullet there. One thing I wanted to circle back on is the Courthouse Preservation Committee outreach. Have been coordinating with Jesse and Chris Westfall on that. We had talked about doing outreach in June, but last time we spoke about this, you guys wanted to kind of get the ball rolling on that a little bit sooner. So we put together a web page, which I will share with you after this. So folks are looking for more information, they can go to that web page, and it has information about how to be a part of the process, how to join the meetings, when the meetings are, just more information in general about the committee. And also Brenda, since she's staying on for longer, may be able to help us with that effort as well. So I'm excited about that, because it could be a bit of a heavy lift once we get rolling with it, I know the community is very interested and wants to be involved and know about that process, so that's a good thing. Proclamations program, we'll talk a little bit about that later. We're starting to get that dialed in, and I'm really confident that that's going to be a great program once we get everything up and running. And I continue to learn more about it too. And we talk about the calendar. There's a lot of, folks from departments or from the communities that are reaching out to us proactively and doing their own outreach. So we want to accommodate that as well. So one of the things that I've learned is that I think we need to be somewhat flexible with the calendar with the proclamations. I think we can have a calendar, but we should be able to do at least one every month that we lead here. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The JSTIC communications, Nick covered that. So as we, I know that's been a strong effort. So as we hit the home stretch, we'll continue to do what we can while following the process and the elections requirements. So another thing that we're looking toward targeting for June and doing some awareness and outreach is our grant program. This is something that we've done a little bit of outreach on, but I want to do actually a little bit more and put together a one-pager for an awareness and outreach campaign and kind of do our standard process that we have, which includes sending it to local media, maybe involving some partners, doing a feature story, whether that's a video, print, photo, feature story. And just doing a little bit more because there's so many successes that we can highlight in that. I continue to be impressed by all the good things that grant program is doing. So have a meeting set with Sharisa, and we've been working with Greg and Sharisa, and so we want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that and just highlight the successes from the ARPA program. Another one that's not on here that we're still targeting to do some outreach on also is our public works facilities team won another award through I'm trying to remember the name of it. Anyway, it was a fleet award, the fleet team.
In the top 5.
Top 5. I'm number 4, and I believe last year we were 9th, but that's significant because that includes all of North, Central, and South America. And there's, I think, I believe there's more than 1,000 fleets. I can double check on that number. So it's a significant accomplishment. It's something we want to highlight and probably go get some photos or videos of them again and do a little bit of a story on it. Another one this month that we've done some outreach on in coordination with the health department. Well, actually the health department's in the lead is Mental Health Awareness Week. They have a proclamation for that, and we know how important that is for the commissioners and for our community. So we wanted to make sure that you're aware that we're tracking that and doing outreach on it. Another one was In the Know About H2O, led by the Community Development Department. We had some events and some outreach that we did to do some outreach on awareness about water and, how we're looking toward having, clean water systems moving into the future. Also supporting public works with the West Hills survey to get public input for the corridor plan. And so we put that survey out and we're gathering feedback. There's some more. Next slide. I won't go through this whole thing, but a couple that I wanted to touch on, the open house and party that we have with Corvallis School District, Capitalized Art. So it's really an art exhibit for us as well. And we can team up with the community, possibly make this an annual tradition for Benton County. It's something that we've talked with the Corvallis School District about, and the Corvallis Art Guild and Fall Festival, maybe bringing in some other partners. I think that could be a really fun event. It seems like there's interest, so.
And we have lots of walls.
We do.
And I thought that was a great event and coordinate our grand opening party event. That went really well. You like everybody was having a good time. Happy to hear that it has a future.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was just a great civic governance opportunity, and so these are the types of things we can do something fun for the community, and they can learn a little bit more about what we do and just get to know us a little bit on a personal level. So,
I'd be curious how many people had never been to the California building before that event or didn't know where it was, or, so I think that's a added benefit of just raising our profile and say, yeah, this is where we are, this is where the records and elections are, and community development and all the other departments that we have here.
Yep. So hopefully we'll be able to keep that one going. It's looking pretty good so far. The rest of these I'm going to skip through. You can kind of see what they are, but I did want to mention the media report. We're going to work on consistently continuing to send that out, most likely bi-weekly. I think I've received some pretty good feedback on that, and so I think for most of the folks it's a valuable product. And then also socializing that a bit more with department directors as well. Definitely, if their department is featured in, if there's an article that's relevant to them, we'll make sure that they receive it too.
Well, this is more to the previous page, just the breadth of efforts that we're involved with, and thinking specific people that may know a whole lot or be passionate about one of those, but just I applaud your efforts in getting word out how many things we're involved with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I guess with that said, then I should recognize other folks, and definitely Johnny and Melanie. Melanie accomplishes a lot in her short period of time that she's here, and I know she enjoys doing this type of work. So it's just been really important for our successes to have her on board, and Bonnie also does an amazing work, and I just nominated her for an award. And then also, of course, Kaylee and the health department and the sheriff's department, their communication folks. It's we're not, you know, and just everyone at the department level, we're able to cover a lot of ground by kind of delegating that out. And then we want to make sure that we have balance too, so we're not taking on too much. But really appreciate that we're able to do that. And then with the media report, and I'd love to do social media reporting. I don't know if we'll ever have the bandwidth to do that, but I just am a big proponent of that situational awareness aspect.
We have done reports in the past, maybe twice a year, or I remember some kind of social with charts and graphs.
We had a fair amount of that during the Emergency Operations Center COVID response, for example. The Joint Information Center pulled together some of that information. All that I'm familiar with in terms of what I've seen since I've been.
And Lilia was doing that prior to COVID as well.
Oh, okay.
On a quarterly basis, just giving us statistics on use. And I think that was largely when we were just in our infancy of using social media as well. And it demonstrated a large increase in uptake, but it is useful every once in a while to get a sense for which platforms are most helpful.
Yeah, so I'm glad we brought this up because we're trailing off, but this is an important topic. We will continue to provide analytics.
Yeah.
For sure. That's something that we're going to continue to do. Johnny has already been doing that.
Yeah.
In fact, I think next month we may have an opportunity to show you some analytics reporting. That's really important. Like, I mean, it's one thing to say that we're doing these things, but to be able to show it is what we need to do. So, but the other part of this is monitoring for situational awareness. It's really hard to do with social media, and it's getting even harder. But from my emergency management background, we would put together reports, especially if there was an emergency going on, and that what we found was that actually helped with planning, operations, certainly public information, and just for awareness for leadership to have. And a lot of times what you'll see on social media is completely different than what you'll see in a traditional media report. So that's that's why it's important, because we need to understand how we should be communicating with our audiences. So that's certainly something, if we ever set up a joint information center, or we have an emergency situation, that we can, if we have the resources available, that would be part of the kind of. So the next one I wanted to move on to, next slide. Benton Breakfast, just wanted to check in on that really quick. So that's on Thursday, and I know the role for the commissioners is to present the public service awards. And so I just need to make sure that all those awards are or have been submitted to Debbie. And then if you haven't already done that yet, please try to do that today. And Debbie said that she would send some notes to you all about the winners, so we can present them. That's all I have on that. Next. We still have these advertisements running. I'm not gonna play the videos because I showed them last time. But we did update the We're Hiring ad to feature the new county administrator recruitment. We've also done some outreach on that on social media. Next slide. Put together a community outreach plan, which I received feedback, sent that to you all, received feedback on it. Especially from the health department, our EDI coordinator, and Commissioner Ojo provided some feedback as well, and I incorporated all of that. And so I think we're ready to present that plan to the leadership team. So appreciate that. And it's another part of our overall strategic communications plan that I want to put together. The next part of that will be media relations, which works out great because it's in conjunction with some work that I've already been doing, and I've showed you all that in the past. Just updating our processes for how we deal with media, how we communicate with media, and you know, just having specific things that we can document to update our policy, which was our media policy, but it's also our strategic communications and how we do some of our internal communications and outreach. So that once the media policy or the strategic communications policy is updated, I want to use that to guide the media relations plan, which will be part of the overall strategic communications plan, which so far has our internal communications plan, our community outreach and awareness plan, and then so the next part of that will be media relations. And then again, so some other parts will be potentially business and industry communication, certainly crisis communication, and possibly stakeholder communication, or whatever we decide to call that. Next slide. Recent events. There was an event that hosted by the district's attorney's office and the sheriff's office for National Crime Victims' Rights. That we did some outreach on that, and of course the California building and open house and party. And next slide. Upcoming events: Willamette Frolic, the Benton County Fair, and the Fall Festival are what we're tracking this year. We considered taking on another event, and then kind of felt like that was probably all we had bandwidth for this year. So we were talking about maybe trying to do an event out on Monroe as well, or yeah.
The other event that occurs every year in June is Juneteenth. And I think the health department is going to be participating, especially since it's right there across the street at the park. And at the senior center, former senior center, Corvallis Community Center. But I think that's another opportunity to get county out in front of the community. So just want to put it on the radar.
Okay, yeah, I think that the health department is tracking that. I'll check in with them to see what we already have planned.
I can weigh in on that. Yeah, this is Kaylee. Sorry, we will be there. Yes, thank you.
And we're gonna have a table, just a booth, Kaylee.
Yeah, we're still in conversation with the folks who are arranging the NAACP event. Oops, I'm just trying to get my video started. There we go. And what we have been talking about is potentially doing some fentanyl awareness and mental health prevention and promotion tabling. So we may have some of our harm reduction folks on site to provide resources, and then also some resources for mental health promotion as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And we'll make sure you all have info and an invite to that as well. Okay, next slide. So if it works, I wanted to show you all the video that we put together for the Calapooya Building Open House. Again, I think these products are affordable and they're important for outreach. It's just a good way to get our audiences looking at more of these things. Looks a lot better than even photos. So more of you. We've actually had the media pick a couple of these up too, because they can run it as is or pull B-roll from it. So it's a good strategy to get earned media. If it doesn't work, that's fine.
It's working, it's just, I have my speaker turned off because of the feedback, that's why we're not getting volume, that's why we're not getting sound.
And not seeing it.
We have a
Oh, it's
product.
playing on.
Playing on this one.
We have a product tracker, which I need to circle back and make sure that we have that shared in a central location that everybody can access. But if this doesn't play now, I want to make sure that I circle back and send the podcast and this video to you in case you want to look at it after.
I can't play it from here, I don't know why it's not. You just, let me do something real quick differently.
And it was on, I'm sure it's somewhere else, because I watched it. 'Cause I
Yeah.
got on,
Yeah, I did
Facebook or
too.
something, or
Yeah, I watched it. I think it was the day after, when we were just putting together thank yous you shared.
Oh, we shared it, okay. Okay, let's just go ahead and skip that one then, Maura. Thank you. So this is, the next slide is a new one. I mentioned this to Suzanne, I believe it was last week or the week before when we had our one or with Jonathan and Suzanne and I recognize that we have done a biennium report in the past, and I was able to track down the information from the 2019 to 2021 biennial report. Looked like a great product. I really liked the template, so I want to do something similar.
That's one.
Yeah, that's one. I want to do something similar this time. I'd like to get that done and get it out in July, so shortly after the next biennium starts. So we're going to start working on that. I'll be able to provide some updates as we move along in that process.
That'd be excellent. That product changed a lot during the period that I've served. Initially, it was actually published as an insert in the Gazette Times. So it was, what's the word? Large newsprint format, or kind of like the TV guide. And then we went, pardon me, no, sorry. Then we went to beating myself. I don't think there's that even exists anymore, right? Then we moved away from that and did all digital, and then we moved away from that and did a hard copy one. So I think it's up to you to reinvent this because it's had lots of different lives. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that part up. So I was thinking about waiting until the next one on that, but that's what we need to figure out because it looks like the last one was actually mailed out. Again, I think it's a very good product and I like the way that it's designed, but I think if we mail that, it's going to be very expensive. And we've already done some mailers. So my recommendation is going to be to not do it as a mailer. And I have some thoughts on this, but I think that I'm going to need to be able to provide those recommendations and then probably get approval from you to follow on that.
Sounds good. I think there are a lot of other ways just to put it out on different sites.
Yeah.
And use PDF.
Yeah, I think it will be a similar, I'm looking at a similar product maybe there's a couple flashy updates that we can do to it, but, similar product that we just share, you know, with our listserv and to our variety of channels that we have.
Well, and it's an important effort. It's operating in the background, and a modest number of people know about the service, but I think it's can use some exposure, just the what we do and who qualifies to use the service and those kind of details. Because Corvallis does something and dial-a-bus, and so it's a little confusing just what our niche is.
Yeah, and I mean, the last one that I saw, it broke down the budget and it talked about, you know, the things that we're doing currently and what services we provide. It was just very concise and it was easily consumable information, and it was graphically appealing. So I'm definitely, there's going to be some coordination involved with this project, but it's nice having a template in place already. And so we'll be reaching out to the individual departments to show them what we've done in the past and get some guidance on how we should present that information. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick update. John B. Kaylee and I went out to the government social media conference. It was very valuable. It was excellent. I'm amazed at how big, for lack of a better word, that this conference has gotten. I've been wanting to go to this for a few years now. I did notice that there were even some commissioners at the conference. Probably maybe a couple, I don't even know, I can't estimate, at least a few hundred people there. So if that's something that one or all of you commissioners would like to attend at some point, I can give you some more information on that. I'll follow up with that. But it was just really interesting, and a couple things that specifically that were interesting to me that I'll talk about. One is just everything that's going on with the First Amendment and some of the legal requirements that we have involving social media. Probably be a good idea to have Vance come in here and talk about that at some point, but really, you know, there's, what I can say is there are some things going on right now that are going to be all the way up at the Supreme Court level that are really going to give us clarity on what we can and can't do with social media. But as it's trending and where it looks right now is that if people can get away with saying a lot on our social media accounts, and we really have to be careful when we can't delete anything, and we even have to be careful with hiding stuff. And but there's specific requirements that are related to the First Amendment as far as what you can and can't hide, you know. So if, for one I remember example is if it's profanity, you have to leave it up there. But then if it falls into what's called an obscenity, then you can hide it. And so that's learned a lot from that. But another one that I learned about is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And from my military background, we call them UPARs, Unit Public Affairs Representatives. And one of the things that's really been working well in social media for government, and this is one of the best things that's actually been getting reach and engagement with social media, are getting photos and videos and information from people who are out in the field doing work. So whether that's law enforcement or fire or public works or really whatever, is having a program in place where you have representatives from each unit or each department. So for instance, if we wanted to start a program in Benton County, which is something I'd like to consider, having department public affairs representatives, where maybe we have a training program, we give each department a camera, and we say, hey, this is how you take a nice photo, this is how you write a caption, and after you take that photo and you write that caption, this is what we do with it. Send it over to the DIO, and then we can socialize it. But really what government organizations are, where they're getting that value from on social media is by getting good imagery of the work that they're doing.
I was just gonna say, Kaylee put a couple chats in the comments. She said a couple of health folks attended virtually, Javier Navarro and Rosie Munoz. And she said they will also have recordings of sessions available soon if any commissioners are interested in doing. Thank you, Kaylee.
Yes.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, I should have mentioned that, so I appreciate it. And hopefully, we can, send a couple people there in person again too, 'cause it's a fun experience and there's lots to learn there. And it was also great to network with some of the Oregon folks too. I, saw a lot of people from state agencies and county governments. Lincoln County was there, DEQ was there, Oregon State Police was there. There's probably 20 people from Oregon there, so it's a good networking opportunity as well.
It was a national conference.
Yeah, it's called the Government Social Media Conference. It's been going on for years now, and it's well known and very well attended. They did a good job of putting it in. And it's pretty affordable too, to make it reasonable so people can get approval to attend. So that was that, and then plain language training is another thing that we're tracking on, and that's in conjunction with the website project, which is gonna be huge. So as we move forward with that, how about fixing up the website project? And then, if it's okay, I was gonna just move straight into the proclamations update, because I don't think that that's gonna take very long, and I'm not sure if I'm over time yet.
Getting close.
Getting close, which should be good. So with the proclamations, I just wanted to let you all know that it's the same. We have this calendar in place to help guide us. But I'm feeling like the calendar also needs to be somewhat flexible. So, for instance, if someone from our community, let's say a veterans program or something, wants to do a proclamation that we haven't done in the past, and we really think it's important to recognize that, and they're already putting a lot of work into doing the outreach, and they are willing to write that for us, and we can review it, and then they're willing to have somebody from the community kind of read it. It could really be anything, but I think it's important that we accommodate those, and so just to have the calendar be flexible. One of the things that we were concerned about, I know this is something that's been brought up in the past and looking at through notes and talking to folks, is the issue of having too many proclamations in one month, especially in April and May. And I think the solution for that is to say, hey, we can probably even recognize a lot of proclamations in a month, but we're gonna have to put some of them on the consent calendar.
Yes.
I think that would work.
Yeah.
So there wasn't such a laundry list of proclamations at one time.
So as long as as long as there's no concerns with that, then I don't think we have any issue. We could recognize 5, 6, 7 proclamations. It's just we might only read 2 of them, and the rest will be on the consent calendar. The way, and we could even read more, but my thought on this, and this is the main thing that I wanted to talk about, is that if we're gonna read proclamations, then we need to have it needs to be a proclamation that we're doing outreach on, and there needs to be a department expert or other experts from, within the community who can come and read those proclamations, because I think that adds a lot of value anyway. So that's kind of what we'll do. And then if we don't have anyone to read the proclamation, and let's say there's only one proclamation that month, then we may ask one of the commissioners to read the proclamation, if that's okay with you all.
Sure.
And so then moving forward, that would be a solution, so we're not reading too many proclamations in one meeting, or if we are, that we have important members from our departments or communities reading those proclamations.
It reminds me of political speech and well, this is my top priority, and this is my top priority, and in the 6 or 8 top priorities, you don't have any.
Yeah.
Diluted the soup.
Well, yeah, it's also, I totally agree, and it's also hard when everything's really important, and there's people who really care about all these things. It's hard to tell somebody no sometimes too, so.
And one thing I'll add, I don't know if the county used to do this before I was a commissioner because I came in the thick of COVID. But I know other jurisdictions, you know, when there's an event, the mayor or the chair will be asked to read a proclamation at that event. And then that's usually put on the consent calendar at the next meeting. So
Yes,
an option too.
yeah, that's a great point. I would like to do more of that because it just, well, you know, we want to add value to proclamations. It's one thing to recognize them, that's great, but, and that's why, you know, we've started posting them on the website so we can use those links to at least do outreach through our communication channels, so we can do more of that. But I think, again, when, to that point, whenever we can get out into the community and make it more meaningful and, you know, connect with people directly, that's what's really going to add value to the program. And that's all I have. Any questions?
Just a comment, I think you're on the right track. When we have months with, like, somehow April and May get picked on and need to do some emphasizing and by reading 2 or 3 or 4, 6 or 8. Just being able to do with that, deal with that, and be able to add and subtract. And say, oh, here's a new one. I think that has more merit than one that we've done traditionally, and be flexible.
I've appreciated the opportunity to kind of get the plan or the process dialed in too. It's just going to make it easier to move forward with it.
It's always easy to add. Oh, yeah, that's a good cause. Soon you end up with a laundry list and dilute the message.
Yep.
Keep doing whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Well, that's it. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. We may need to and check, but I think Corey's report is valuable and they need a little more time and we're, you know, scheduling. Next up. 3.3 county compensation philosophy. Tracy Martin, also Eric Smith.
Good morning. I have Tammy Webb, our comp and class analyst, with me as well this morning. She'll be joining us. We, as you know, we engaged Gallagher as a consultant for us to conduct a compensation study for both management and confidential positions. Derek is with us today. I'll let Derek just tell you a little bit about himself and then launch right into his presentation on compensation philosophy.
Great. Welcome, Derek.
Thank you. Yeah, just quick bio about me. Hopefully I'm not too long-winded here. Got about close to 20 years of HR compensation and classification experience. That's both in the public sector and higher ed, as well as a little bit experience in the private sector. Several years of consulting as well. Have several advanced degrees that complement that experience, as well as certifications. And really, one of my last jobs was the executive director for the Higher Education Recruitment Consortium, which focuses on making sure there's talent and or expectations that are vital for DEI initiatives, as well as attracting and retaining talent in that industry. And one more kind of tidbit about me, the reason why I got into compensation and classification is because my hero is Martin Luther King Jr. and his last act on this earth was to do compensation for city workers in Tennessee. But let me jump into my presentation. It's actually going to be very interactive. So I'm going to be asking probably about 6 questions, but I'm going to set up a little bit of kind of comp basics for you in this presentation. I'm sharing a screen with you. It's a PowerPoint. So let me know when you can see that. I want to do it from the very beginning of the presentation. So can you all see my screen here? Should say
Yes.
Benton. Okay. And let me know if it advances too, because sometimes it stays on there. But as Tracy explained, we have started discussions and organizing a compensation study for your county. And there's a lot of details to go over. But before we get into any of that, we want to talk about this topic, which is a compensation philosophy, which should guide us in our decision making and our overall strategy for the county and how we attract and retain talent. Is the PowerPoint advancing to the second slide?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I won't ask you anymore. Hopefully it continues to do so. So let's talk about these goals a little bit more specifically. We want to brainstorm who we are as in the county, as in Benton County in the marketplace. And the market is basically those people that you compete with for talent, whether you get talent from these other organizations or they get talent from you. This will help us with providing a framework so that we're consistent and equitable with our structure across the variety of operations and roles for Benton County. Equity is a very important part of this, and so is the market data. So we're going to focus on that quite a bit and mention those words several times. We as Gallagher, as your consultants, will be assessing your actual structure for classifications and compensation. We'll also give you recommendations about how to implement some new strategies and structures. And more than anything else, another key word is transparency. This is so that people can know, especially employees and not just supervisors, but employees, supervisors, and of course, the citizens of your county, the fairness across your organization for classification and compensation. More so the things that we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to be asking you about half a dozen questions, is really putting together a purpose for our comp philosophy. You may have done an exercise like this before or familiar with comp philosophies. I will give you a little bit of basics on that. Comp philosophies are really just to make sure that we have a consistent methodology for promoting and hiring people and to ensure fairness across your organization. And then finally, it's the beginning drafts of an actual comp statement, compensation philosophy statement. This is designed and reflective of where you are with how you pay your employees and your system and how you go about doing that. So we're going to talk about what is a comp philosophy a little bit more deeper in the next slide. So what is a comp philosophy? A comp philosophy is basically your approach and your mindset about salary ranges and paying your employees. Most often this isn't thought about, but I'll explain a little bit more detail in the last bullet point in the next slide about kind of the general buckets of what a comp philosophy can be or will be or should be. Comp philosophies are typical in most organizations, and they align your mission and values along with taking in consideration the average market value. When I talk about the market, once again, those are other jobs across other organizations that pay similar jobs, either similar in scope or similar in title, but more so in duties than anything else, and how they pay them in comparison to your organization. So there's three different buckets, as I was trying to kind of mention before and lead up to this next slide that's coming up, about a comp philosophy. And a comp philosophy is basically either you are lagging the market, leading the market, or meeting the market. And so let's talk about what those three things mean, and we'll see this in the next slide here. So when you lead the market, that means if you look at all of the salaries in the market, you're paying around the 75th percentile or higher. So those are the top salaries that you would pay someone in a salary range, or even just compared to other workers that have similar salaries either in your organization or in the market. Those typically go to people who are experts in their field, or they have a lot of experience, which probably would lead to their expertise. And so they are really not the norm, but the outliers, the highly experienced people and the very skilled people that you would pay top dollar. Lagging the market is the complete opposite. It's at the bottom of the pay scale. These are usually entry-level employees, people that don't have that lot of experience, and so they are just entering into this type of job in the marketplace. And then to meet the market is really around the middle, which is the 50th percentile. And often when we refer to the word market, we're often talking about the 50th. This is where the vast majority of people in an organization are usually located, right around the 50th percentile. They're not just beginning their career, and they're not several decades in towards the end of their career. And so a lot of times when we talk about the 50th percentile, we are actually talking about the middle of market, or to shorten it, market in general. So there's a lot that's, to think of here when you want to think of your philosophy. A lot of times when people want to lead the market, it's often because they want to get the best of the best, and they have enough resources as well, meaning money to pay them that. So that's not often that happens. Lagging the market happens as well, and the reasons for that are it's a brand new organization, don't have a lot of money, just need to get people in the door, or it could be there's some financial issues and other money has been focused and earmarked for other items, and therefore the 25th is the best that we can do right now, but it is our philosophy, and we're just going to be transparent about that. And then of course meeting the market is really the norm. With all three of these, it's very important that the employees and those stakeholders around the organization understand what your philosophy is, so it doesn't vary and you don't have issues with transparency or inconsistency, so that everything is equitable and people know that are stakeholders what your philosophy is and how you want to approach things, and it doesn't change drastically. So they feel well informed and you're connected and you're communicating clearly. So we're going to jump into a couple things here as far as questions go. I'm going to ask you, commissioners and others that are able to answer right now, but particularly the commissioners, I believe there's 3 of you, some questions here. So if it's okay to kind of think through this and brainstorm out loud, they are just kind of exercises, and just to get you thinking about where you want to place yourself in market. So there's 4 questions here to begin with. And the first question is, how do we think Benton County differentiates itself in the market? It could be a geographical thing, it could be services, but I need to write down some things that you think make you different as a county. What makes you special and different than other counties in the market?
I mean, our area has been, listed as one of the top places to live several times.
It's also one of the most expensive places to live. But in terms of a market, in terms of hiring, I would say that having a very supportive board of commissioners for progressive approaches to serving our people, that is one of the top things that we offer. And we put dollars behind programs. We also are a university town, and that really helps because there's a cadre of folks in the community that understand what we're trying to do.
Well, and I think our size, being a medium-sized county, medium-sized in the city is an advantage. Somebody that wants to get things done, their efforts, they can see their efforts bear fruition because of our size and willingness to try things out.
I would also say that medium-sized county role helps because we are small enough to be somewhat nimble and yet big enough to have the resources to innovate. We are not as large and bureaucratic as some of the larger counties who may have a lot more resources, but it's a lot harder to turn the ship.
Excellent. I mean, we can spend more time on this question if you all have more things to say. And anytime I move on to another question and you want to go back to a question, let me know because I'm taking notes. I'm typing them in. That's why I'm looking to the left of my screen. These are great answers. There's no right or wrong answer. They're the answers. So I want to take note of that. And I also want you to remember kind of the things being said here before we move on, because some of these questions are at the other end of the spectrum. As you will see, the next question is asking, what does not work well within the current compensation program? What things seem to be issues that you want fixed or you don't know works well?
So, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say that so the rest of these questions might be a little tough, or at least me, because I've not been that involved in the compensation program, right? I'm just an elected official, and so I don't have a lot of experience talking directly to maybe employees that might be identifying issues. Although one issue that we're trying to, or that's been brought to our attention lately is, for example, in our sheriff's office, where a concern is that some of, a lower down position might be making the same as a higher up, a deputy might be making the same as a sergeant, and then over time they might actually be making more. And so I think we need to learn more about that and learn what is typical and what we can do, if anything. Compression, thank you.
Well, and how to fix something like that more on a long-term basis instead of having to come back regularly to, well, this needs fixing again. And so more of a systemic approach to situations like that. I think that's a unique one.
I think it exists in other places, but it's more extreme in the sheriff's office than in other departments. Especially because of the hierarchical command structure. The other thing that is, I think, a challenge for a lot of our roles is minimum qualifications. I think we've been one of our ways of trying to edge higher in that matching versus leading the market is by boosting the minimum qualifications we expect for roles in order to winnow the pool. But I think sometimes that works against us in terms of finding people that have great experiential learning rather than formal learning. So that's an issue.
I'm not sure if this is the right place for it, but a relatively recent state law of pay equity, I think is the correct term. And so, Derek, when you were talking earlier about leading or leading the market, I think we're constrained what we can offer, because it's not just we like this position for a department head, and so do some serious negotiating, but that may or will impact other salaries, comparable salaries. So it's not. I think that's not of our doing, but that's the situation that we're working with.
I think one of the other issues that I have is that it's all very well to say we want to lead, match, or lag the market, but what is the market? Who are we comparing ourselves to? That's always been a question for me. And if we compare ourselves to other counties, based on population, as the primary factor, they may be, counties that choose to lag the market, and that does not help us. And I think we need to look realistically at who our competitors are in our region, and in terms of the market, and the profile of the employees that we're trying to get. And I took some notes about, who our sources of employees typically are, and who we feed, in, where people go from here, and that's, I think that informs me, to me, who the market is more than anything else. And then our sources tend to be people from smaller jurisdictions that want growth and that want an opportunity to change and innovate. So it tends to be the smaller counties, smaller cities, in state or out of state or at the state.
Great. And we definitely were looking at those with your comp team internally and asking those questions to make sure we're aligned with your expectations and your needs. But as I said, some of these questions are on the opposite end of the spectrum. So now I get to ask you this question in the gray area here. If you want to go back to any of the other questions, feel free to jump in. But this next question in the gray box says, what works well within the current comp system? So we know that there's things that we can adjust and change and make better, but there may be some things that are going well that maybe people have mentioned to you, or that you see should continue just because they're consistent and things that will help you be grounded. So what things do you see working well in your current compensation system?
I think we have, and like Commissioner Weiss said earlier, we don't deal with these issues regularly, but I think our compensation package, benefit package is towards the upper end of what's out there. And I don't have a lot of things to compare to, but just anecdotally, I believe that's true.
Yeah, my impression is that our compensation, our benefits, health insurance and that kind of stuff is pretty good. So PERS is also something that's a benefit to people in Oregon that work for the government, but that's outside of our control. And then I guess, so something, this doesn't have to be with compensation necessarily, but some of our policies, like, allowing telework to be flexible there, I think is an advantage for us.
I think the clarity of our teleworking policy has definitely given us an advantage in our regional market, and that's a good thing. But this is something that I'm not sure whether it's in the positive or the negative bucket, but we really struggled with adopting a performance-based pay model. It didn't work well. And that was partly because we did not have the right level of employee engagement and trust, and a regular routine system of evaluation and goal setting for employees before we started. If we had done all of that and it wasn't, and then pay wasn't based on it first, and then introduced the pay based on performance, that might have worked. But I think the goal setting in and of itself and the emphasis on regular evaluation and employee engagement is helping. And I feel like that's made a difference over the last few years, especially now that we've disconnected pay from that. And so it's more of a conversation and a dialogue and opportunity to learn and focus.
Okay. Yes, completely understand, and those are answers that I'm familiar with in dealing with other public sectors, as far as benefits and as well as performance management. It is an issue in quite a few other organizations that are similar into as yours. And I put that issue of performance management in the last bucket about things that may not be working well, but we can improve on. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you can kind of think of things after we said it, we can always go back and put that in the notes. So now I'm on this last one. This last one's maybe a little bit more challenging because I just introduced possibly to some people a new concept that you may have not thought about before. And maybe some people do know about comp philosophies, but maybe haven't thought this through as much. But I'm going to make you think on your toes again. And let's look at this last question here. From what you know that I've explained about a comp philosophy and the things that you discussed that are both kind of strengths and weaknesses with your current comp program, and how you have a unique situation in your organization, or at least you have some unique aspects. Why would you think Benton County would need a comp philosophy? What are some of the things that you think it would help with? Why would you need a comp philosophy?
Just as a basis for decision making.
To attract the best talent. And ideally, a diverse talent pool.
I think I agree with those comments, and just, this would give us kind of big picture roadmap of where we want to be heading, and then makes getting into the specifics make more sense.
I would say we health and all actions and equity are at the core of our stated values, and we want to make sure that we embed equity in comp philosophy as well as in everything else. That's another piece of it. It can complicate things, as Commissioner Malone said, but it definitely is something that we want to highlight.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a slow typer. Good answers. These are things that I've heard from other public sector organizations. So I see that you're on the right track as far as thinking of why you want to have these things expressed. We can talk about that more if need be later on, but for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next slide and kind of talk about these things a little bit more. Actually, this next slide is just a repeat of this one, so let me kind of move on to 2 more slides. So we're talking about the purpose of a comp philosophy. You all kind of answered that pretty well. And these are 3 more questions. I thought I had a total of 6, but it seems like there's 7. So I miscounted. Sorry about that. There was an extra question in that first one. So the first question on here is, what type of tool can the compensation philosophy be used for, right? So when we think about a comp philosophy, I think you kind of answered this of why you need it, but what type of tool do you think this can be used for a practicality of implementation? How does the rubber hit the road? What will that immediately impact, and what can we use it in? Think about your talent in general.
For recruitment flyers and on our website, it's just as an immediate communications tool.
And that's a really good answer. I think when I was listening to the conversations before with the different events that you have in your county, and you seem to have an awareness of emerging societal topics. And one of the topics obviously is equity and transparency. And I can tell you right now from my experience working with other counties, other cities, higher ed and nonprofit organizations, is the type of people that are attracted to jobs like this are the same type of people that want to see these type of statements. This kind of lets them know without meeting you ahead of time before they apply for the job, what your kind of standards are, not necessarily specifically morals and ethics, but related to your morals and ethics as an organization, what your goals and what your philosophies are often attract a certain type of individual And their rewards, their compensation goes beyond just money. Kind of like what I was saying in the beginning, I got in this work not for the money necessarily, but for that social justice. And so some people can see that as well. Anything else on that first one? What type of tool can the compensation be used for? Recruitment is a very good one. Any other statements?
Well, I guess just retention, that we're in. This wasn't just a happy talk at before you got the job. This is how we try to operate on an ongoing basis.
Great. All right. That's always a hard one, but you all hit the two most significant ones that I often hear from other organizations. If you come up with more answers to that or something sparks your mind, be free to just jump in and tell me those as well. So I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, but let's express this a little bit more. How would a compensation philosophy define you? So if I'm looking at your organization, the county, Benton County, for the first time, what things do you think that would show to define you to me as a potential new hire or a potential applicant for an open position in Benton County?
I would say it's a reflection of our values and particularly our culture.
Excellent.
No, I think it shows that we care about the people that we asked to do sometimes fairly tough jobs, and that they will be hopefully know that they will be supported and given the tools necessary to be successful.
Great answers. Thank you very much. Oops, I skipped ahead. So sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. Okay. Last question, then I'm going to show you some examples. I already kind of gave you a preview there, but good answers so far. Things that we often hear. I'm glad that you are insightful to how that appears, because perception has a lot to do with reality sometimes, so you're being intentional, and that's good. So last question, and this may be difficult as well. I've given you some pretty hard questions, so thank you for answering to the best of your ability. But this last question is talking about something that a compensation program must have. Now, I know you're not compensation experts, but you do know how it is to be an employee or even a leader in an organization. So what are some of the things right away that you can think of off the top of your head? And people that aren't answering, have empathy for those that are, because I didn't prep them with these questions. I'm asking them off the cuffs, and you're doing a good job. But what things do you think a compensation program, what is a must-have for a compensation program?
Maybe clarify the expectations of the individual. You know, it might help me understand what's expected of me if I'm reading through that, and then help me understand, you know, if I'm interested in moving up in position or getting a raise, or, you know, if I'm thinking long-term, that might be something that I'd be interested in looking at and seeing, what do I need to do to move up with this company and get paid more.
But echoing that, I would say transparency about the range, salary range for any position, and about the expectations in order to advance through that range. And how it typically happens. I would ideally want to have it say something about the county being an employer that helps provide that training and opportunity for experience that allows me to advance. We also have clarity about benefits package. The total comp. Mhm.
Okay, so I got, and these are good things. I just want to make sure I have it all. Clarify the expectations, kind of life in the career, how they can advance in a career with you at the county. What's how they go through the range, through iterations, salary transparency of the range, uh, career development, providing training and experience so they can advance. And then, of course, information and clarity on the benefits package and total rewards or total compensation. These are good answers. Once again, people who aren't answering realize they're answering these questions in front of you for the first time. They haven't seen these questions before, but these are things that are important when we start to develop a comp philosophy and or look at information that is impactful to total rewards or to base pay, as well as any other fringe and benefits package that they may receive. So this is good information. So I'm going to kind of give you guys a little bit of a break. Okay. And I'm going to share with you, I think I advanced the slide earlier, some trends that are happening right now. And you talked about some of these topics. So just realize I'm going to give you some information about what is happening in the marketplace with organizations that are competing for talent with you, or just have adjusted their organizational comp philosophy to compete better with their peers and comparators. So as I move to this next slide, hopefully it'll do it for me. Okay, here we go. There's 4 topics here that I want to give examples for. The first one is fair administration. And I think we kind of talked about this at the beginning. You all sprinkled that in your answers as well. It's assumed that when you have an administration that should be at the forefront, but a lot of times you really have to be very specific and intentional about placing that in your communications. So they often look at guidelines and documents and practices, both internally and externally, showing so that employees know and can have a framework of what your thinking is towards your comp philosophy as far as fair administration. I think someone just said this last part, appropriate training and ongoing communication to ensure policy and procedures are consistently and rationally applied. So that goes for kind of pay transparency or benefits. Even though we might be explaining it to some of the employees, it's also important that the supervisors know this too, because they are often a part of the recruitment process or the hiring process. And these are things that employees need to keep in mind. And also when we have touch bases with them to kind of, and I think another person said this as well, to retain them and keep them on the right track, we need to express these things about how we go about being fair with our administration. We also talk quite a bit about equity, so internal equitable practices. So we said this as well, things about job evaluation system. How is it based? Is it based on a market approach? Are we looking at other organizations? Is the pay consistent with the ranges, the min, the max, and the midpoint? And once again, is it reflecting what our competitors are doing? So these are some of the things, a couple of the things at least, that are happening right now in 2023 for people that are in other organizations to get an advantage for the war on talent, because we're all competing and it's getting a more and more competitive place. So we talked about this quite a bit, external competitiveness. So we're going to bring up that word market again. Having market comparisons, are they based on the level of the position duties and responsibilities, or they are on the geographic area that we recruit from? So there's a fine balance for that. And some people lean one way, maybe they lean another way. Some people combine some of these aspects. Those are decisions that you want to talk about. And I think you brought this up in some of my questions. So that's good that you already have it part of your mind. And then more importantly, I think someone brought this up about performance-based pay. It's been a struggle across many industries, particularly in the public sector, very difficult to implement and maintain and maintenance. But that's part of a lot of people's comp philosophies based on job performance, and several factors that determine whether an individual should be close to their midpoint or far away from their midpoint. They use those bullet points that are on that list sometimes, not always successfully. It's a struggle for many, particularly when you talk about performance. You have to have the right metrics. It can be somewhat subjective, and you want to have as many objective performances as possible. It's much easier when you are in a private industry that's maybe manufacturing, and you are talking about manufacturing or creating like widgets or something, and a widget maker has a very quantitative measurement about what their output and performance is. It's a little bit different when you are of service in the public sector and you are working with counties and cities and townships, and these things are a little bit more harder to measure. Years of service, sometimes people just go with longevity, and that has both its strengths and weaknesses. Just because you're in a position for a long period of time doesn't necessarily mean that you're highly skilled, but a lot of times when people are in a position for a lot of time, they're picking up quite a few skills, and they're actually probably performing pretty well, but we don't always catch up our performance and our experience with their pay. And so these are things that we often try to look at with our clients and see if they want to include them, or if that's something they want to do at a later date, or if it wants to be excluded in totality because of past experience. And speaking of past experience, related job experience outside of your organization. A lot of times people go about that where they want to make sure when they initially hire them, they're placing them correctly in the range and rewarding them for the experience outside of your organization. This can be, as we mentioned before, difficult because we can have some compression issues. Luckily, though, as a comp expert, as Gallagher with decades of comp experience, we have some tools and some philosophies as well as advice of how to do that depending on the situation and what the issue is. And then finally, an annual salary pool, meaning an annual salary increase pool. This is very helpful in many cases. It could also exacerbate the problem, but in many cases, it helps to keep up with market. And here's the thing about market. As you can tell, not necessarily directly related to inflation and PMI, but definitely a little bit tangent to it. Prices for jobs and for employees go up every year, and to keep your structure or your salaries the same year after year could probably cause issues and create possible lagging, as we talked about lead, lag, and meet, lagging compared to market. But every situation is different, so we have to look at all these things on a case-by-case basis. It doesn't mean that any of these 4 sectors up here, fair administration, internally equitable, externally competitive, and performance-based, means that you have to do any of these, but they're just things commonly happening with your comparators. The next part of this, I'm not going to task you with, but I will leave it for you to do as a group to later on. I don't want to run out of time here to do later on. But it's really talking about drafting a comp statement. And so I've got, quite a few notes here that I can send to you. I can send it via our internal project committees, Stacy and Tammy, your notes, so you could possibly put together a draft comp philosophy statement. And usually they aren't very long. They're about 4 sentences long, but I'm not going to ask you to do that now. If we had more time, I would try to help draft that with you. But these are things to consider, because I think one of you commissioners said very, very astutely that these are things that if we draft it, we can attract talent. We could put it on our website. We can put it on job postings. People can already identify with what our tactics are, and really how we support our employees, our transparency about the topics, and what our values are for an organization. So I'm going to just leave you with this last part. You don't have to answer it now. I will send the notes to both Tracy and Tammy in your HR department. I really thank you for engaging and taking questions without having a lot of preparation for it. You did just fine, by the way. But that's what I wanted to share with you. I also wanted to share with you, we're going to take that information, and as we review data from the comparators that you as an organization choose, we'll keep these in mind when we make our recommendations. I really wanted to thank you for your time today. And if you have any questions now or later on, I'm here to answer them, or you can send me an email or connect with me later on. Thank you very much. Any questions you may have?
I just have a comment, Derek. I just wanted to say thank you for your structured presentation, and I really like the way that you helped keep us at the policy level rather than letting us get down to the weeds. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome anytime, and I'm here to engage anytime afterwards, especially when we're done with our project. I'll be more than happy to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
So commissioners, if you have any follow-up questions as a result of Derek's presentation, Derek, if you could stay on just a moment or two.
The discussion about leading versus matching the market is one that really percolates for and resonates for me. And I have to say that there are a couple of things that are warring in my head. I would love to lead the market and attract the best and the most experienced and the brightest, but we can't afford to do that top to bottom of the organization, I don't think. You know, it seems like it would be really expensive. It's really important to me to have to lead the market in that sense at the leadership level, but I don't think that's an equitable approach. So I'm struggling a little bit with that notion of leading the market versus matching the market, and whether you can do different things at different tiers. But I think that leading the market also kind of competes with growing our own, and that philosophy of really nurturing and providing tools for people to learn and become the leaders. So all I want to express is that I think that it's complicated, and that I'm not sure where I want to be in terms of leading or matching the market at this point in time, because I think that we can draw a more diverse talent pool. It's more reflective of the diversity of our populations if we don't try to lead the market, if we're matching. You know, it's that minimum qualifications thing again. But I want to be able to reward people well when they are innovators. That's just a huge ball of wax for me. So I think that the geography, the geographic pool of comparators is really important to me too, because I don't feel like it's as big an issue if we actually are matching Layton County, Marion County, and probably Clackamas and Hood, River County. You know, the folks that we really compete with in terms of our programs and the way we approach things, rather than comparing ourselves to Polk and Yamhill, Lincoln, who aren't necessarily leaders or innovators, and it's not who philosophically or value-wise I want to compare myself to, but and not who we compete for talent with.
So me getting really into the weeds, just a little bit more about what we mean by market when we talk about market, especially for management and confidential jobs. These tend to be higher level jobs requiring significant preparation, whether that's educational or experiential. Those tend to be higher paying jobs. We also tend to see people for these jobs be more likely to relocate than positions at lower levels. And so that changes our market, right? That means that we're not just looking at county comparables and city comparables. The cuts that we're looking at as part of this compensation survey are actually Western United States. And so we're actually in the process of working with Derek and his team to identify what those cuts would look like. And those might mean slightly different cuts depending upon the occupational groups that we're looking at. I'm looking at Derek and he's nodding. For example, our folks that are primary care providers, healthcare, those jobs tend to move really quickly in the market. And it's really important that we pay attention to salary surveys from that sector. So that's just one example. And I think in working with Derek, we'll take some of these different forces that are in play into consideration as we look at the data And as Derek starts to put together a construct for the salary ranges. Derek, what I would expect that at the end of the project, what we would bring back to the commissioners are some options of what it would look like if we were to match or leave the market. I'd also say one of the first questions that an organization has to answer is what can we afford?
Yeah.
And I know Rick, our CFO, is also on this call. I'm sure he's paying careful attention to that and would be happy to weigh in at that point in time also.
Sure, so just so my understanding is correct, so this will be an ongoing conversation, we'll discuss this again, probably at a board meeting or another goal setting meeting, or what do you envision?
Well, I can come and update you at any point in time that you'd like more information, but where we're at right now is in the data collection phase. And so Derek and his team are working on that part. We've identified what we call benchmark jobs. Those are jobs that are representative of our classifications and our salary ranges for management and confidential employees. And then once that data is in, they'll start to do their analysis. And we will begin working with them to, just see what's going on in the market.
So I think what would be helpful for me for that future conversation would be to kind of understand, like Commissioner Oders, but how broadly this applies to the county, maybe some examples of positions that would apply to, is it the upper management and not the entry, or is it, just more clarity on that would be helpful.
Sure.
And then, because I totally agree that, the vision that I have is us, getting, lower down people that have, all the right ingredients to be excellent managers and having some kind of mentorship and helping them along. So let's see, more information on that. Also kind of having a better understanding of where are we now? What do we do now? If we go. And then sort of an idea of what would the monetary or the budget impacts be. Not that it's not necessarily worth it, and I know high performing employees are, more engaged and provide better quality work, so, I guess conversation around value would be something for me to consider.
Just real quick, I can weigh in to answer a couple of your questions. So there was, or even statements, they weren't even questions. There was the idea about leading or lagging the market. It is very common to combine them. I know that sounds weird, but you could start off with lagging the market, and in the middle of the year, you can meet the market, and that would be an intentional approach. Or it could be the opposite. We're going to start off leading the market because we know we have money now, but by the end of the year, we might just meet the market because we can't be competitive the whole year. That's one thing. The other item was talking about the options that Tracy brought up. That's absolutely what we're going to do. We'll probably start off with 2 options to give you, because we're required to give you 3. But those options are typically comparing your organization to market. And if you want to be, once again, kind of anchoring your pay structure on lagging the market and having to be at the 25th, that's an option. Or it could be a living wage, which is another option, or it could be meeting the market or the 75th. So we try to give you 2 so you can see what that is. But more importantly, I think one of the commissioners said, you want to know kind of what the cost is. We give you a couple different, actually several different metrics to look at that, the impact of what our recommendations are, and that makes it easier to select one of those options. So we realize that that's going to be a work in progress. And to Tracy's point, the market may be different for different level of positions. Some of them definitely are national positions where people are more likely to move from another state to your state, whereas other positions, they might be completely internal state positions where people don't necessarily move out of state for those positions. However, they may be a combination of hard to recruit for positions, hard to fill positions, hard to retain positions. And so we give you a reflection of what that is as far as what would be enticing to market, as far as to be competitive at the 50th, the 75th, and the 25th, so you can make some informed decisions. But it is very true. that these things are challenging for every organization, not just yours. And some of these decisions you make now, you may have to change in a few years, or maybe even sooner than that. And that's okay, as long as there's transparency and as long as you are keeping attention to it and maintaining it, which by this activity alone, that's exactly what you're doing. But I can tell from your conversation, you're concerned about doing that going forward. So once again, thank you for letting me speak. If there's anything else, I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I've got something in I think it's under the category of intangibles, which maybe is not exactly what we're talking about, but making sure for current employees or potential employees that obviously that this is a good place to work, that it's hopefully we're all in this together kind of attitude versus us versus them, which is another option. I think of the Gallup's effort that we started and then stopped and now trying to get going again, but just figure out how can we all do better. And to me, that's exciting. It's okay. This is a job, maybe a pretty good job, but we have a real opportunity to step up our game and do a better job as a group. And I think that would help attract a certain type of people that, oh, maybe this isn't just a job, that this is an opportunity to do some good for myself, my colleagues, my community.
Can I ask a quick question? So when we go to hire somebody, let's say we extend a job offer and that person does not take it, do we follow up with them and ask what their reasons are for not taking it? Okay.
Yeah, we sure do.
And I guess I'm reassured by the fact that we might have different strategies for different both levels of employees, but also different fields, because they are not all the same. The markets are different for different areas of expertise. But I think once again, just being fair and transparent is important too. So it's always going to be a balance, and you have to recognize that. Yeah, and I personally would really not like to lag the market.
Yeah, I mean, my gut is, yeah, let's leave the market. Woo-hoo, let's do it. But also we live in the real world, so we just have to make good informed decisions and make sure we get all the information. And a follow-up question to the one I just asked, is that information stored? I mean, does anyone look at it? Do we examine it? Do we think, look for common themes? Or is it just, kind of individual case by case?
Well, I would say it comes to HR generally on more of a case by case basis. But I would also say that when we see trends or patterns starting to develop, I know Tammy's initiated several interim explorations of where we see either there's several failed recruitments, or we've had maybe several of the top finalists for a current position refuse the job because of compensation, or other factors. Sometimes there's other factors, not just compensation. One of the things that we've seen in the last year is getting into bidding wars with current employers, and that's happened to us unfortunately quite a bit. So yes, it's about compensation, but it's about compensation everywhere.
Thank you.
The only other question I have is, how long is this comp study anticipated to take? When are we going to need to make our final decisions and kind of things? Are we looking to implement a shift?
So couple of things. One, I am preparing to bring to you an interim step in the next several weeks for you to consider to make an adjustment to salary ranges similar to what we did last year, kind of our normal process.
Adjustment a good point.
And then, Derek, as far as an estimation of the project completion, we're looking at probably July.
That's correct. We have to do some custom survey information, if I'm correct. And that takes a bit of time because we have to gather it from whatever comparators that you select. And so we want to make sure we get that accurately. When we ask the comparators, sometimes we don't get feedback from them. So we need to build in time for us to data mine and look up that information and contact them and get it ourselves. But yes, that should be, I think that should be a fair estimate. I believe we have a 5-month engagement. Is that correct? About 5 months?
4 to 5, yes, I believe so. And July timing seems to work pretty well for us. We're on the 2-week lag with payroll anyway, so we wouldn't be looking at more than probably a pay period or 2 as far as if any adjustments were needed.
Yeah, my schedule books solid through June anyway, so.
Anything else? Thank you, Derek, and looking forward to
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
hear the report. Get the report. How long will be your county administrator update?
2 minutes,
Okay, why don't we do that?
all right.
And then we'll break.
I just have a really quick update. We've received a few more applications. Actually, Heather's received a few more applications for a total of 9. Unfortunately, the couple that she talked about last time who had initially indicated interest have decided not to apply. However, she is in the process of talking to a couple of other people right now who have expressed interest. So we will be checking in again next week. Towards the end of next week, we'll probably start thinking about whether we need to make a decision to extend that first review date or whether we're okay with going ahead with the plan that we have in place. But just as a reminder, that's May 22nd. That was our first review date. We'll see how the pool stacks up towards the end of next week and make some decision around that, and then I'll report back to you.
So we have almost 2 weeks to hopefully fatten the pool, and I assume Heather's actively engaging people. She's not just waiting for offers to come in.
Now, part of her process would be to reaching out to her networks. Those people who've applied for other jobs that she's served as a recruiter for. And also just mining different areas and, conducting outreach, some warm outreach in terms of direct contacts with people to, assess whether they might be interested.
Okay.
I've had a big uptick in people viewing my LinkedIn, so I feel like
Yes.
that's a good.
It's a good sign. Yeah. And there's always a flurry of activity towards the close date. So we expect next weekend that we'll see a burst of excitement.
Like 10 days from now. Are you talking about this weekend?
10 days from now.
Okay.
I just stop and count there.
Okay. Good, that sounds modestly promising and looking forward to more information. I think now would be a wonderful time for a good solid 5-minute break. And 6. And
Make it 6.
why don't we come back at 11?
Okay.
And actually, by what we will be doing is health director, health administrator position. Suzanne will be leading that, so. All right, we'll resume our goal setting work session. Next up, discussion health director, health administrator position, Suzanne Hoffman.
Thank you. I also asked Tracy to stay for this presentation, so I think as we have conversation, you may have questions that she may be better positioned to answer. And I also asked Rick, who is still with us, to join because he helped contribute to the two-page memo that is in your packet dated May 5th. Some of the impacts that are listed in that memo. Just to, as a quick reminder, I brought this topic forward for an initial conversation about a month ago, I think, at a goal setting meeting. And really wanted to queue up the conversation, which is one that Joe Kirby handed off to me when he was departing, and we had a particular plan in place to think through this over the course of about 90 days to 6 months and come to a decision, knowing that I wouldn't be here for that, but we did contribute to the plan that he was putting in place. And then, of course, with his departure and with my extended time here rather than departing at the end of March. And also just in consideration of some of the financial challenges currently experienced by the community health centers. Rick and Tracy and I talked about perhaps the plan that needs to be revisited and in light of all those turn of events, and that perhaps waiting another 6 months to come to a decision on this may not be the best alternative for stability and for progress. So back, the position of health department director as it currently is designed has not been filled permanently since January of 2020, when the last permanent incumbent departed. As you know, we had 2 deputy directors for the health department who stepped up to be co-directors during the beginning of the pandemic response. I came in as an interim in October of 2020 and departed that position on March 15th. And of course, as you know, April Holland, Deputy Director for Public Health, has stepped in to be the interim health department director for the time being. And that's very understandable when you've had, as the county had, an unsuccessful recruitment, and which is also not uncommon at the height of the pandemic. I don't think we were alone in that. It's pretty difficult to probably get someone to take a health department director position at that point in time, especially when it could mean for several applicants moving their families across the country during a time of great uncertainty. And I do think that it has served us well, and that the folks who have stepped into the role have helped move things forward. And I myself have been honored to be a part of that. We are on the other side of the intensity of the pandemic response at this point. And it does seem like all of the health department and the community health centers are working hard to get back to work that was set aside during that point of time, and to be looking forward to get back on track with strategic plans and regional health assessment and community health improvement program and all the things that will reinstate the work that maybe was set aside for a while and really help move the health of the community forward. So from my perspective, it feels like time to also recruit for a permanent leader. And whether that is to simply go forward now and begin the recruitment process for a health department director in its current design, or whether you would go forward with a health executive that would oversee the whole, all of the health components. I guess my most important recommendation is probably not to wait too much longer. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that, my departure was not as significant a factor as Joe's in that, he was going to lead this effort and he had a strong history through the pandemic. And of course, with all of our current health leadership, a new county administrator may not have that, may not have health expertise, may not have been with us through that experience, not to mention is going to have an awful lot to learn and a lot of demands on their time, which is another reason why I think it may not be, it wouldn't be my recommendation to necessarily wait. I know there are though concerns about a county administrator being able to weigh into a decision as important as selecting a direct report for a critical and large area of the county. So I think it is also possible to get started on the process. As you know, well, these things take time. And if we know what position to fill, we could begin the process of redefining the job, getting that job description updated, preparing a job posting, a recruitment announcement, landing on a recruitment strategy, beginning to combine that with work that HR is already engaged in on executive recruitment. And because these things do take time, it is also possible to move forward now, but also potentially have a new county administrator on board in time to be a part of a final selection process, perhaps. So I don't think it's an either or. I do think that with careful timing and any luck, we could line this up to meet several goals at once if you choose to do that. My recommendation would be, as I outlined in the memo, would be to have one department as opposed to the two department model that we've been functioning under for some time. And along with that model, a suggestion of a name change. And I have been in conversation with Community Health Center Executive Director Carla Jones. We are going to be planning, she has actually reached out to counterparts who are CHCs connected to county governments. So we'll be meeting with our counterparts in those counties to gather more information. It's Lane, Lincoln, Multnomah, Clackamas, and Tillamook. I've already had a fair amount of conversation with Lane County, for example, but there's more. And whether you want to wait and have that inform your decision, or whether you make a decision now, and these meetings will still be incredibly helpful because they will inform our implementation. They will inform our change management. So we're going to continue with those conversations regardless. But also the suggestion, which came up in my conversations with Carla, I so appreciate her perspective on this, is if we become one health department as opposed to a health department and a community health centers department, that we should think about what we call that. Because if it's just simply called the health department, it could feel, just from a work culture perspective, as if one entity sort of subsumed another. And that's not the intent. It's still very important to have these separate divisional areas of specialty and identity. We just want to have a construct in which they could perhaps work more effectively together. And so, excuse me, my attendant recommendation is that we think about a name change. I've made a specific proposal to Health and Human Services Department, mostly because many of our partners use that terminology, so it's pretty common. And I'm certainly not proposing that we take on anything we aren't currently doing as a county. For example, we have a community action agency in our tri-county area that is our anti-poverty agency. I'm not proposing that we in any way take that on that word. But we do provide a fair amount of human service in addition to actual strict health service. Our developmental diversity division is not a healthcare service per se. They connect people to those services, but they also provide much more. And of course, our coordinated homeless response team definitely falls into that category of something broader than simply health or healthcare. So thus, my suggestion that if you move to that department model, that a Health and Human Services department would maybe honor all of the aspects of the work currently being performed and provided, and may ease the change management process, work culture perspective.
Perhaps the new, will also oversee the veteran services contract that we have with the West Council of Governments that still doesn't have a staff.
Another
There's
side
four.
benefit, and that's a very good point, because it kind of changes our state of mind. If we have a limited state of mind on what our body of work is, it can make an automatic resistance sort of reaction to something else coming in. But if we have a broader umbrella mission, not to suggest that we need to really honor what other people's core body of work is and the funding they receive to do it, but that coordination and leadership perspective.
Yes.
can be there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give you all several options, but not overwhelm you with them. So at the very end of the memo and also in your board checklist, there are a variety of options you could choose, and you may come up with others, but accepting the recommendation and directing us to proceed with implementation is one. Accepting the recommendation with changes you may want to see is two. Fill the health department director position as is. Just asking that we be intentional about it, as opposed to it's because we always did it that way, but really be intentional. Good. Number 4, postpone the decision until a new county administrator is in place. And of course, you can always just direct us to gather additional information you feel you may need, even if you intend to make a near-term decision. And I'll defer to you for questions or concerns, or whatever you have, and ask Tracy and Rick to help me out with those things.
I just want to clarify one thing. I just take a teeny tiny issue with a way that you characterize something, which was that it made it sound like we haven't had good leadership in the health department, and I think you have demonstrated excellent leadership.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well,
imply
you
that
said
at
that,
all.
you know, it's been temporary and whatnot, but I mean, how long was Dawn here?
A year.
A year, and you've been 2.5, and you've just done an excellent job. So I just wanted to say
Thank
for
you.
the record, leadership there has been good, I think.
Oh, thank you. I have to say, that I appreciate that. I certainly would mean to imply that the leadership, aside from me, the health services leadership team is outstanding. The only reason that I could be effective or successful is because of them. They are amazing. And in the memo, I actually called out Community Health Center Department's executive director, only to point out that that individual has just gone above and beyond for quite some period of time, filling in interim roles, doing 2 jobs at a time during a difficult time to recruit. And I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that any of the health services leaders are anything but stellar. They're amazing individuals, and I just feel like they deserve to have a health executive that can help bring them all together, help move them forward, help capitalize on resources and reduce emissions. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because I really didn't need to come.
I just want you to get the credit you deserve.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think that's well deserved. Frankly, I think that part of the reason we've had trouble recruiting both for the community health centers director and for the health department director role is because of this ambiguity. And I know that it was a big question that Dawn had when she took the job and it was part of the reason that she left. She was frustrated with the fact that there was a lack of clarity. So personally, I'm very supportive of moving toward a combined department role and having a health services administrator and more clarity about responsibilities, because I think and Tracy, you're probably in the best position to comment on this, but I think it's been a part of what's hampered us in terms of getting the best applicant roles for these roles. It's time.
So, yeah, I agree that I think I'm supportive of the change. I think that, you know, we retain all of the positives of the CHC. We're not losing the QHC portion. We're retaining the same staff. You know, we still have the CHC board. All the good things that you know, that comes along with that is not changing, but it's room for improvement with, you know, the internal contracts and financial stewardship. You know, those things are important. And as Commissioner Odro said, hopefully leading to better recruitment and getting a good person in that will stay and be a good leader. And I am happy to see the piece about a change management plan, because I know stuff like this can be a little scary, or, you know, just the uncertainty for employees of what's going to happen. So I do support this, and thinking about, you know, should we do it now? Should we wait till a new county administrator comes? You know, a new county administrator is already going to have so much stuff to do that I can see how this might actually be one less, you know, thing that they have to worry about. And if they can be, if they're here in time to help out with and be involved in the, you know, interviews and whatnot, then that's great. But otherwise, I wouldn't let that be a hurdle for us doing this. So I think we should move ahead with it. And I appreciate the multiple recommendations. Oftentimes we get recommendations that are like, do it, don't do it, do nothing. It's like, there's, you know, thank you for being thoughtful about different ways of act.
Full speed ahead. There's no reason to wait. County administrators, we don't know. And this, we know that we need new leadership. I think for the county administrator position, we said, well, this is a good time to be recruiting. Summertime, you think kids changing school. So I absolutely agree to go forward till for somebody for the combined positions that they would. The new person would be in charge of the clinics in addition to the current health department structure. So I think that the timing is right, and absolutely no reason to wait.
So I'm happy to make a motion.
Page 19.
I'm going to accept staff recommendation and direct staff to pursue the implementation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. And it was nice to have options with. I think it's pretty clear what we need to do.
I think step one is begin working with the health services leadership team on communication to go to all of the staff, and then we will begin to formulate our change management plan and keep you informed every step of the way.
If I may, I would put a plug in for the future county administrator, that not to underestimate the value in an administrator choosing his team, his or her team. It can be factored in so that that person has the opportunity to at least weigh into that selection, it would be a huge benefit.
Absolutely. If we can time it that way, that's great.
And if we have good choices, I can see if the decision's already been made and the person looks very promising, I can see the administrator being relieved that they're in place, and so I think you could debate pluses and minuses of the county administrator being able to weigh in, but just don't think we can wait. Because I just think the last time quite a bit of time and wasn't, you know, was successful, but not in the way we had in mind.
Sure. Well, and I think that with timing being the way it is, we're likely to hopefully have a new county administrator before we get that portion, I guess. And in my mind, this is a decision that the board would make even with a new county administrator. So our decision is really just the recombination or the structure versus who it is.
Well, and to be clear, I think that it is the county administrator's decision that the person reports to them, so it is that county administrator hire. I think that's where the sensitivity comes in, is that I'm as confident as I could be that with the amount of input that I would have to make that decision, that I would make a good one. The reality is I won't be here to really own it going forward. And so I do think that's a really careful balance. And so obviously if by some chance that person is not here and we're at that decision point, I would be relying on a real team effort to make that decision. And just as I came to you today and asked you to give direction and guidance on this, I think Joe actually could have made this decision on his own without necessarily bringing it to you all. But because I am in an interim capacity, I felt it was really important that obviously I take your direction on this, and we would do the same on the selection. Thank you for the clarification.
Hopefully that was easier than we thought it was going to be. And thanks for the homework and laying it out early, quickly.
I think that there will be lots of questions from staff. I think that's going to be, part of that change management process is, what does this mean? What does it not mean? All those kinds of things. So again, process by which we collect those questions and concerns as soon as possible, so that we can begin to formulate a plan for how to respond to them and then what this looks like moving forward.
Maybe it's a little tardy, but anybody online wish to comment at this time? Deafening silence, so take that as we've covered that topic. Next up, interim county administrator update. Suzanne.
I don't have anything additional today. That was my primary topic.
Okay, well, I can see that being a large effort. All right. Commissioner updates.
I can start.
Okay. This is the exciting part, Tracy.
I think you are both aware that I was up in Salem on Friday for the Joint Ways and Means Committee Construction Subcommittee to provide testimony for our primary legislative asks for the Emergency Operations Center funding and the Corvallis Daytime Drop-in Center funding for the Homelessness Navigation Center. And that's a pretty rapid fire process. There were a lot of people to testify, so there are no questions, but I was in the first grouping, so I was in and out pretty quickly. And
You get 3 minutes.
2
minutes.
2 more minutes. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that and advancing our projects and
Well,
what
thanks.
else?
I had good, great staff support from both from Nick and Rick here, and then with Zach and Ryan from CFM. So, yeah. I will, let's see, I can pull the testimony down, the final version from Olis, and share it too, just so that you have it in hand if you're interested.
Okay.
The Association of Oregon Counties meeting yesterday. Some of the steering committees did not meet. The legislature, as you know, is slowed down a little bit by the current Senate Republican walkout, and by the fact that they're also asking that all bills have plain language, which Corey will be familiar with, because that evidently that is stipulated in our Constitution, that the language be simple and understandable. And so they're also returning bills to the writers of the legislation to rewrite some of it before it's read on the Senate floor. And that's going to winnow down even further what will be considered before the end of the session. A lot of the EOC preferred legislation is moving. Some of it is moving in rather creative ways. It's either in ways and means or in rules in order to not be subject to the final deadline. But I think that relations are good right now between the AOC and our legislators, so we're trying to just maintain that positive relationship. One of the big topics was HR and just the issue of cost containment as negotiations move forward and asked me for AOC. So subject to of executive session there. The other couple things I just wanted to mention briefly were that I'm gonna be presenting at the Natural Resources State Leadership Corvallis next Thursday, right after our bed and breakfast. I've done that for years now, and it's kind of a fun thing to do. And I really, this will be my first contact with this year's Leadership Corvallis cadre, and I've been fortunate to be able to stay in touch with them each year, and they're always a great group. Often includes some of our employees, often includes some of our peers, so it's just a fun opportunity to see who the emerging leaders are around town. The other issue that I've been again following pretty closely is the whole aid and assist issue with the Mossman order. And I believe on our agenda next week, we'll have Damien with us to help walk through the effects of the Mossman order. I'm not sure whether that did get on the agenda or not, but Marion County and Washington County are stepping up to take a more active role in the ongoing implementation of this federal court order as amici in the case. They are asking for other counties to join in and preferably for AOC to step up as a whole. There was an active discussion about this in the Health and Human Services Steering Committee meeting yesterday. Daniel Bethel has sent a couple of memos out on this topic. I don't know whether they went to you as well. Yes, okay.
I've got one.
Okay, there was another memo yesterday, and if you did not receive that, I will forward that.
I got the one yesterday.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we have a proactive discussion about the topic. Damien has weighed in. I'd like to recommend that we do participate, but I think that we should make a formal decision. If we're going to do that, I want to make sure that Vance is at that table too when we do make a formal decision. So, yeah.
Chair, would you like me to work with Damien Sands about potentially coming to next Tuesday meeting with that topic?
Sure, I don't have my agendas for next week quickly.
I'll check it quickly while you're talking.
There's probably
Yes.
time.
Yeah, I think that they actually have some meetings on this topic this week, and so Marion County staff are hoping to have people really jump on board yesterday, but
So were you planning to resolve it here or wait till?
I think that we should wait for Damien and for Vance to weigh in. I would prefer to do that.
They should know how
Mhm.
decision making works.
Right, of course they do.
Yeah.
But yeah. And the last thing was that I had great opportunities to attend both the Jackson Street Youth Services and the Corvallis Boys and Girls Club fundraisers in the last couple of weeks, and they were both very well attended. And saw the sheriff at both of them, of course. He is everywhere. And but they were great opportunities just to be there and show the county face. And I should mention too that Matt Weatherly was also at Jackson Street fundraiser. Well, may have even been at Boys and Girls Club, but that was so big that it's hard to know. That's it.
They have a couple things, but you want to go?
Hey, I did participate in the AOC Natural Resources Committee meeting last Friday. This was maybe came out at the legislative breakfast, but OSU extension and the other two services are asking for supplemental budget I was going $50 million to keep them anywhere close to the service levels and just brief conversation with Katie Fast, the OSU lobbyist. That didn't sound very promising. And that does our that could affect some extension efforts locally. Depending on who retires and, I mean, it's not necessarily a very thoughtful process. It's just taking advantage of openings to keep them open and don't fill some position. There's some fairly serious effort to do some adjustments on Senate Bill 762, the comprehensive wildfire effort that started a couple of years ago. Senate Bill 80A gets stuck on mapping. They're now hazard maps, not what the other term was, but we've made great progress there. Dave's the name of the maps that were quite
Risk map,
risk. Yeah, it was risk, and now it's hazard.
yeah.
So that would solve all our problems. It was from Senate Bill 762 to statewide mapping to let people in their communities know what their hazards, wildfire hazards are. And there was a lot of pushback, concern about effect on homeowner fire insurance rates, and Senate Bill 80 is trying to address that. The good news out of that is there's at least modest funding for otherwise community efforts around the state. The ODF a couple weeks ago talked about. Well, I also attended the transportation and community development meeting on Friday, and I can't remember notes from that, but I had a lot of meetings. There it is. Abandoned RVs, and so Commissioner Pope talked about it a year and a half ago or something like that. I did not know that was that big an issue, but it is. I don't think we've heard much from our public works folks, but they're dealing with it. I guess the surprising thing for me is you have this vehicle that's only buying worth $50,000 or $100,000, and now it's worth minus $5,000 to maybe $10,000. And I'm confused. But hazardous materials, there's too many of them. There's, well, is that a RV or is that somebody's home issue? So it's not a simple. I think everybody can agree that it's a problem. In fact, I briefly talked to Representative Julie Fahey from the Eugene Junction City area, and she she is working on that, but wasn't optimistic that anything's gonna get turned.
Would you not like a product, life cycle fee, some sort of a fee on sales of RVs so that there's actually a fund to dispose of them?
Yeah,
Because otherwise counties end up paying for disposal.
State Washington has a fee of $6 a year, I think.
Oh, this year. I would
A
think,
registration fee. And, that's inadequate.
yeah, I would think, some sort of a percentage on sale would be.
That's the other part, but there aren't that many sales, and so a registration fee. I think she was $25 a year would raise $4 million a year. And that's, and $6 million is needed, but if you get 4 million a year, way more than we have now. Not optimistic that,
It's gonna become more of a problem.
yeah. And especially with the legislature gummed up, and so this is a contentious one. As of Saturday, she was not optimistic that this was going to get through, but I thanked her for her efforts, and this was, I think, a thankless effort, but needed. So, and where I saw her was at Wayne Morris, the Democrats' annual dinner in Portland, where local activist Tanya Shifley was recognized for her long-term efforts. So that's a good part of the reason why Betty and I were up there. But you get to see some people. I had an in-depth 15-second conversation with Senator Wyden. So it's kind of fun. So I think that's probably enough. Transportation, the tolling effort, 205, I-5, Clackamas County, Washington County. I'm not sure if it gets into Mount Line or not, but the governor has postponed that conversation for a couple of years until 2026, which ODOT is getting desperate. And this was maybe a good part of the solution, but the opposition there is if you put a toll on 205, then people will get off and use the county or state roads that aren't interstates.
How do you get over the river, it's the bridge?
There may be different tolling sections and
that can be sorted out. It's all political. And it's just frustrating.
And it's only gonna get more expensive.
Yep.
But anyway.
so, but I'm not sure if that affects tolling on the proposed Columbia River Bridge. Need to clarify that. It's just called tolling is we can't implement anything for 2.5 years. But tolling is part of the package for $6.2 million bridge. Billion.
That's like, okay, but that's cheap.
And I'm not sure who did that, but maybe that's the cap, the most we can spend on the bridge, no matter how much it costs. What affects, this doesn't, Washington is 12 years late with ponying up $1 billion. Oregon needs to match that, and it's a question of do we talk about that Saturday?
Yes, we did. Yep.
That, and maybe a combination of bonding and AODOT come up with $250 million or $500 million that's not in their current budget. So if ODOT is supposed to come up with significant dollars, it affects projects all over the state. Because their budget really isn't working anyway. So that's something that I think will get hashed out here in the next little over a month. So. Yep, that's what I had.
I was just gonna mention, you talked about the RV dumping. From my impression is that our private forest and, Oregon Department of Forest lands are where most of the RVs in Benton County currently get dumped. And so they have a big issue with it. At least that's my understanding from the Benton County Sheriff's Office Forest Patrol meeting that all the, stakeholders.
I think, yeah, that's very true, and it just alongside highways, I've seen them abandoned in Lynn County and the coast. For sure, it's hard. And I just think it's gonna be an increasing issue as people that are unhoused buy secondhand RVs as homes, and then they become like garbage. Hazardous garbage.
Toxic.
Yep. And my understanding locally is that the sheriff's office has an arrangement for BNR to take in the ones that we find abandoned, but they only have space for so many at a time that they can take in for the sheriff's office. So that becomes a problem. It's expensive. Yeah, and it's expensive.
So you want to make a comment on that, or?
No, I just, remembering back to when we allowed some RV and car camping during COVID, with the fairgrounds and then the city, I believe, did it in their park. But at the conclusion of that event, we did have one remaining RV that had been abandoned, and it was not functional. It was leaking toxic materials, and it was very expensive to have removed. The health department mentioned.
You're interested.
There's only one company nearby that would do it, and they charge literally by the foot.
Did you know?
I do have one more transportation, road usage charge. So right now we pay gas tax and the federal gas tax has not been raised since 1994. So it might be a little behind. And maybe that's why the IIJA, big transportation package, comes up, because there's not nearly enough federal dollars going into the system. But the gas tax has been slowly declining what it can do. Vehicles are, we just don't have enough 10-mile-per-gallon vehicles out there anymore, which is a good thing, but it puts ODOT in a place. There's been a very small pilot program where people keep track of their mileage, and it's a voluntary thing, and hasn't caught on, but that is another ODOT trying to figure out how to be functional into the future. So, stay tuned. If you get, what was the breaking point? If you get more than 30 miles per gallon, then they would like you to be subject to that tax. Less than that, you're maybe okay with the current gas tax. Now I'm done.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to be in Utah next week for the National Association of Counties Western Interstate Region Conference. And I'm going to be missing the first day because 16th is election day. I'm not going to miss being in Benton County for that. And the first day is like golfing and some other, not, yeah, so it's fine. But I'm looking forward to that. I've never been to Utah, so we'll see how that goes. I look forward to seeing, you know, our Oregon partners. You know, we usually have like a dinner or something, so it's always good to see them and just meeting new people as well. I guess the only other update, so I chair the local officials advisory committee. We did officially appoint, well, it was confirmed by CDC, new advisory committee members. So we now have the full committee. So that's exciting. Moving forward, we can actually get some work done. So our next meeting is going to be in July. So after all of the state legislative stuff wraps up, and anything that needs to move to the VLCD and LCDC for rulemaking, we're going to have a chance to give our 2 cents to CDC. So if there's stuff that you are following, that you have thoughts on, please feel free to pass it along, and I can follow along to that group.
That's very good to know. Thank you. Speaking of travel, I'm taking the week after the election off, and I will be going to the NACO National Conference in Austin. So that's in July. Hot time of year to be in Austin.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, no, thanks.
And and then the AOC is going to be hosting a legislative retreat and board retreat in Klamath County in September. She'll probably also go to.
You said in September?
Yeah.
Okay. Like they always do something in the middle of June, but I can never go to because it's always my dad's birthday.
No, yeah, September, the Klamath County Commissioners, given that Derek DeGroot, Klamath County is chair this year, are hosting, and they timed this particular retreat to be during their Oktoberfest, which is actually a September fest. Beer fest, I guess.
As long as it's not around September 8th, my birthday.
No,
It's like a mile.
it's my mother's birthday.
Your mother's birthday.
Second. So beer and golf and horseback riding and other things figured into that equation, I think. But
No, I was just gonna say that together, right?
time, no.
No. Triathlon.
Oh, it's something I've never tried.
I don't have the patience for it personally, like the attention and focus. I'm too like, yeah, it's just not my, and I think that's okay, you know.
It's perfectly okay. I don't have anything else.
Either. The last thing on the agenda is other.
There anybody online? I love when that happens.
Is there anyone online that has any other business that you would like to share this morning? Fans.
No,
Hey, there.
Thank you. If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Chair. Minutes to spare, look at that. Hopefully next week's meeting will end probably at noon or before.